100 races, 0 wins. For a driver with 2 Cup Series championships and over 60 career victories, that number feels almost impossible to believe. But after what happened at Martinsville Speedway in 2026, the story of Kyle Busch and Richard Childress Racing has reached a breaking point that the entire NASCAR garage can no longer ignore. To understand how everything collapsed to this point, you have to go back to where it all started. Kyle Busch is one of the most successful drivers NASCAR has ever seen. From Hendrick Motorsports to Joe Gibbs Racing, he built a career that very few could ever match: multiple championships, over 60 wins, and a record-breaking streak of 19 consecutive seasons with at least 1 victory. At one point, winning wasn't just normal for him, it was expected. But in 2022, everything changed. Sponsorship talks slowed down, contract discussions broke apart, and after 15 years at Joe Gibbs Racing, Busch suddenly found himself forced to reset his entire career. That's when Richard Childress Racing stepped in, a partnership that many doubted at first, but one that started with promise. In early 2023, the move looked like a masterstroke. Busch immediately found speed again, winning 3 races in just 16 starts. It felt like the comeback was real. But then came the 4th of June, 2023. At Worldwide Technology Raceway, Kyle Busch crossed the finish line as a Cup Series winner for the last time, and what followed has become one of the most confusing declines in modern NASCAR history. Busch later pointed to one major turning point: rule changes in the next-gen era that removed key areas where RCR had been finding performance. As he explained, some of the things they relied on simply weren't allowed anymore. And from that moment on, the momentum disappeared. It never came back. 2024 became the most painful chapter of his career. For the first time in 20 years, Kyle Busch went completely winless in a Cup Series season, ending one of the greatest streaks in NASCAR history. And it wasn't just a slump. It was statistically the worst season of his career. Fewer top 5s, fewer top 10s, fewer laps led, and his lowest average finish since his rookie year. Even people outside the team started noticing. Kevin Harvick was one of the first to speak openly about it. While he acknowledged the early promise at RCR, he also pointed out a steady decline that became impossible to ignore. And then came the line that said everything. He is worried about how this ends. Inside NASCAR, that kind of statement carries weight, because it doesn't come from emotion, it comes from data. Part of the struggle comes down to the next-gen car itself. Since 2022, NASCAR has shifted towards standardized parts, limiting how much teams can individually adjust setups. For a driver like Busch, who built his success on fine-tuning cars to his exact style, that change hit hard. As he explained, the tools teams used to rely on simply aren't there anymore. Finding rear grip, once a strength, has become a constant challenge. And when that foundation disappears, everything else follows. Even the simulation programs that teams depend on started becoming unreliable. What worked in virtual setups wasn't translating to real race conditions anymore. With only limited practice time and restricted adjustments on race weekends, there's almost no room left to fix problems once the car hits the track. Then came the contract pressure. 2025 was supposed to be a turning point, the final guaranteed year of Busch's deal before RCR picked up a short 1-year extension for 2026. It was a vote of confidence, but a fragile one. 1 year. No guarantees beyond that. Richard Childress made it clear he believed a win was still possible. But Busch knew the reality. At this stage, it wasn't about potential anymore. It was about results. And 2026 was about to decide everything. A brand new crew chief, Jim Pullman. That's already the 3rd crew chief in just under 2 seasons. And in NASCAR, that kind of turnover doesn't happen unless something deeper is broken. It signals one thing: the team has been searching for answers and hasn't found them yet. Then came Martinsville, the weekend where everything stopped being subtle. Even before a single lap was run, the warning signs were already there. Kyle Busch qualified 34th. Not slightly off, not mid-pack. Ba muy bornth. After qualifying, Busch didn't try to hide it. He called the car sideways, loose, undrivable. When asked if the team could fix it before the race, his response said everything. No one knows. Not optimism, not confidence, just uncertainty. And then he went even further. Busch said he would need a caution between lap 30 and 40 just to survive the race. Without it, he didn't believe the car would make it. That's not strategy talk. That's survival talk. And when the race began, it played out exactly like he feared. No early caution, no reset, no escape. By lap 46, Kyle Busch was already a lap down, not fighting for position, not managing tires, just trying to survive. Then came the radio, and the tone inside the car told the entire story. More rear brake, give me drive off, let me drive the car. That final line hits differently. Let me drive the car isn't a setup adjustment. It's frustration boiling over in real time. A driver who already predicted the outcome, now living inside it. Martinsville 2026 ended up producing something even more alarming. Busch's worst driver rating ever at that track, a 41. At a place where he used to be one of the most dangerous drivers in the field. But the problem wasn't just one car. It was the entire organization. After Stage 1, all 3 Richard Childress Racing cars were running 26th or worse. And that's when the reality became impossible to ignore. This wasn't a Kyle Busch issue. This was a full team performance crisis. RCR entered 2026 without a single top, 1-0 finish. As an organization, their average finish sat at 23.2, one of the worst stretches in modern team history. The pressure inside the organization was becoming undeniable. Even insiders began questioning what was happening behind the scenes. Rick Mears pointed out something simple but powerful. Richard Childress is a competitor, and what he's seeing on track right now goes against everything he built this team on. In response, RCR has made major internal changes. New technical leadership, new performance direction, new management structure. Everything reshuffled in search of answers. But so far, nothing has translated to speed. And this is where the story becomes bigger than just data. Because at this point, it's not only mechanical, it's mental. Brad Keselowski, who has lived through a 1-1-0 race winless streak himself, explained it best. When you don't have consistent cars, you stop making winning moves. Not because you can't, but because the belief starts fading. And once that happens, everything becomes harder to rebuild. That's the trap Kyle Busch is sitting inside right now. No rhythm, no momentum, no confidence cycle to build from. Just race after race of instability. And in a situation like this, there are only 2 possible outcomes. Either RCR finds speed, the engineering clicks, the cars come alive, and the winless streak finally ends. Or the pressure keeps building. Because if 2026 ends without a win, without a playoff run, without real progress, then difficult conversations become unavoidable. Busch is 40 years old, in the final stretch of his contract, sitting outside the top 20 inches points, still searching for answers that haven't arrived yet. But here's the part that makes this story complicated. The talent never disappeared. Kyle Busch still understands exactly what's wrong with the car. He can feel it, he can diagnose it, he can explain it. He even predicted Martinsville before it unfolded. The question now isn't whether he still has the ability. The question is whether Richard Childress Racing can finally give him the car that matches it before the window closes completely.